Beyond survival, the courageous journey to healing. Welcome to this sacred space. Today, I have the profound honor of sharing insights from my recent conversation with Josette Ross, a visionary entrepreneur and nonprofit executive whose work through Butterfly and Raven Vintage is transforming how Black women approach healing and empowerment. Josette isn't merely running a business, she's orchestrating a revolution of the soul, creating pathways for women to transcend mere survival and step boldly into thriving. Her wisdom resonates not just in boardrooms, but in living rooms, therapy offices, and community spaces where women gather to reclaim their wholeness. Have you ever noticed how we celebrate resilience without questioning its cost? We applaud the woman who handles it all, who raises children, excels professionally, supports her community, and somehow still manages to show up with her lipstick perfectly applied. We call her strong. We call her a superhero, but we rarely ask, at what price? This question sits at the heart of what Josette Ross's work reveals, that there is a profound difference between surviving and thriving, between enduring pain and actually healing from it. The truth that emerged from our conversation is both simple and revolutionary. Many of us, particularly Black women, have mastered survival. We've inherited generational blueprints for enduring hardship, for pushing through, for making a way out of no way. These blueprints weren't mistakes, they were necessary adaptations, crucial strategies for navigating hostile environments. Our grandmothers and mothers didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Their strength wasn't optional, it was essential. But survival mode was never meant to be permanent housing. When we live perpetually braced for impact, our nervous systems remain on high alert. Our shoulders tighten, our breath shortens, our capacity for joy diminishes. We might look successful on paper, the promotion, the house, the well behaved children, while feeling profoundly disconnected from ourselves. This disconnection isn't accidental, it's protective. When pain becomes too overwhelming, we separate from it. We compartmentalize, we keep moving. But healing requires something different. It requires us to pause, to turn toward our wounds rather than away from them, to acknowledge not just what happened to us, but how it changed us. And this, as Josette powerfully articulated, is where many of us get stuck. Because how do you heal what you've been taught to ignore? How do you address wounds you've been conditioned to minimize? How do you prioritize your well being when you've learned that everyone else's needs come first? In 2018, Rachel Cargill confronted these questions head on when she founded the Loveland Foundation. She recognized that Black women face unique barriers to accessing mental health support, from financial constraints to the scarcity of culturally competent providers. The foundation's response was bold and practical: a therapy fund that has raised over $600,000 and helped thousands of women access care tailored to their specific needs and experiences. I want you to imagine what this means in real terms. Picture a woman who has spent decades believing that therapy isn't for people like her, who has carried the weight of trauma, perhaps sexual violence, perhaps racial discrimination, perhaps both, believing that silence is strength. Now imagine her sitting across from a therapist who looks like her, who understands the cultural context of her pain without requiring explanation, who validates experiences she's been told to minimize. This isn't just health care, it's revolutionary care. It's permission to acknowledge pain, permission to seek help, permission to prioritize healing. Because breaking generational trauma isn't just about stopping harmful patterns, it's about creating new ones. It's about saying this pain stops with me, not because I'm stronger than those who came before me, but because I have resources they didn't. This is courage in its purest form. And it's a courage Josette Ross embodies through her dual work as an entrepreneur and community advocate. Through Butterfly and Raven Vintage, she's created a business model that doesn't just generate profit, but channels resources back into nonprofit initiatives supporting marginalized communities. What's remarkable about this approach is how it reframes entrepreneurship, not as a path to individual success, but as a vehicle for collective healing. It demonstrates that thriving isn't about accumulating more, but about creating space for others to rise alongside you. This perspective challenges the false dichotomy between success and softness, between achievement and vulnerability. It suggests that true empowerment comes not from hardening ourselves against pain, but from allowing ourselves to feel it fully and then transforming it into purpose. Consider Kamisha Jones, who founded Sister Afia Community Mental Wellness in Chicago after her own struggles with depression and anxiety went untreated during college. Like many Black women, Jones didn't see herself reflected in mainstream mental health services. The therapist didn't look like her. The treatment models didn't account for her experiences. The very language used to describe healing felt foreign. Rather than accepting this gap, she created a solution, a community based initiative offering peer support groups, sliding scale therapy, and workshops specifically designed for Black women. Today, Sister Afia serves hundreds annually, not just providing services, but shifting narratives around what healing looks like in Black communities. What makes Jones's work so powerful isn't just the services provided, it's the message embedded within them. You deserve to heal. Your pain matters. Your joy matters. You are not alone. These examples illuminate something profound. Our stories, especially our stories of pain and healing, hold tremendous power. When shared with intention, they create permission structures for others to acknowledge their own struggles. They transform isolation into connection. They turn private pain into collective healing. But sharing our stories requires vulnerability. It requires us to stand in our truth, even when that truth feels messy or unfinished. It asks us to trust that our experiences, however difficult, might serve as a bridge for someone else. This isn't easy, particularly for those who've been socialized to protect others from their pain, for those who've learned that vulnerability equals weakness, for those who've been told explicitly or implicitly that their feelings matter less than their function. Yet, what Josette Ross and others like her demonstrate is that this vulnerability, this willingness to be seen in both our strength and our struggle, is precisely what creates the conditions for healing, not just for ourselves, but for our communities. Because when one woman says, "This happened to me and it hurt, and I'm working to heal," she creates space for another to do the same, and another and another, until what was once carried in isolation becomes held collectively. This is how we break cycles of trauma, not by pretending they don't exist, but by bringing them into the light, not by carrying pain alone, but by sharing its weight, not by pushing through, but by pausing to process. The question then becomes, what might be possible if we approached healing with the same determination we've applied to survival? What might change if we redirected even a fraction of the energy we spend keeping it together toward actually becoming whole? These aren't abstract questions, they're invitations to examine the ways we've confused endurance with healing, to question the narratives that equate strength with silence, to consider what thriving might look like beyond mere survival. Because the truth is, we weren't meant just to survive, we were meant to flourish, to experience joy without waiting for the other shoe to drop, to rest without guilt, to love without fear, to live without constantly bracing for impact. So I challenge you today. Take one step toward addressing your own unspoken wounds, whether that's seeking professional help, confiding in someone trustworthy, or simply acknowledging to yourself that something hurts and deserves attention. And then extend that same compassion to another woman in your life. Create space for her story, validate her experience, connect her with resources, question the narratives that have kept you stuck in survival mode. The belief that rest must be earned, that vulnerability equals weakness, that your worth is tied to your productivity. Because when you choose healing over hardening, vulnerability over armor, thriving over merely surviving, you don't just transform your own life. You create ripples that touch countless others. You become living proof that while we may have inherited patterns of trauma, we can also become ancestors of healing. While we may have learned to survive, we can also learn to thrive. This is not just personal work, it's revolutionary work, it's world changing work. And it begins with you today, right now, making the courageous choice to move beyond survival and claim the fullness of life that has always been your birthright. Your healing isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your story isn't insignificant, it's powerful. Your journey beyond survival isn't optional, it's essential, not just for you, but for all of us. Thank you